Morning, folks. Good morning, everyone. We are going to get started with the Massachusetts Community Health and Healthy Aging Fund office hour. And for this particular topic that we're going to focus on today is really understanding policy system and environmental change. My name is Albiat Altine Gibson, and I serve as the director for the funds. And I also have two of my colleagues here with me as well, so I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Caitlin.
Hey everyone, it's good to see you today. My name is Caitlin Figueroa, and I am the program officer on the funds. And I'll pass it over to Chen Chen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chen Chen, the program associate here, and also program officer for some of the PSE grantees. Nice meeting everyone.
Right. And so, next slide, please. And so as far as logistics, some quick housekeeping things for you all. If you have any logistical or content questions, please type them into the chat box. Closed caption transcription is available upon a request, so just hit the little three dot buttons and click caption if you need those. And this is something that you all have already seen. Again, this funding opportunity. The deadline is March 29th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, with a potential program start date of July 1st. And we are looking to award 20 to 25 awards with 15 million going out this year. Next slide. And so today, again, we're talking about policy, system, and environmental change. And so what is PSE? And this is really important because this is really a component that is incorporated throughout the fund's work. And so policy, system, and environmental change strategies are ways to make sustainable, lasting change within a community to really support healthy environments and behaviors across population. And these strategies create or change infrastructure and modify the context in which people live to improve community conditions that promote health. And so PSE change is often made in combination with one another. And this really can help further strengthen the efforts, whether you're focusing on the policy change, system change, or environmental change. And so the little graphics that you see here with the three bubbles and the different colors, it's just like this is really a representation of how PSE change really works within one another to help strengthen these work. And in terms of like in the middle, we're seeing that community engagement is a key aspect of PSE work, as well as partnership and really focusing in on health and racial equity. So those also ties that that are held within a PSE change. And as I mentioned, you can do this work looking at the PSE work really within the context of the funds. If some folks sometimes focus on the policy, sometimes the system and environmental change. But again, all three of them really complementing and supporting each other. And PSE is expected in all the funding streams. So as you all may already know, there's a healthy aging funding stream. There's a community health improvement planning funding stream, as well as the PSE funding stream, which opens it up a little more broadly. And so within all of these, the idea is that you are looking at those long, sustainable upstream ways of doing work to address barriers. And, you know, when we're thinking about the planning grants as well, those are for organizations who have some emerging PSE related work and ideas in mind. And so, you know, I say all this really again to put emphasis that it doesn't matter which funding stream that you're doing, the work is really looking at that long-term sustainability that PSE looks for. Next slide. And so here we have just different explanations and understanding for policy change, system change, and environmental change. And so when we're looking at policy change, this includes the passing or changing of laws or legislations, as well as different ordinances, resolution, mandates, regulations. This can be on the local, national level, rules of such as well. And then thinking about government bodies, park district, healthcare organization, work sites, schools, jails, all those institutions all make policy. And so policy change includes advocacy and education, civic engagement, and power building. And so when we think about what are some examples of policy change, right? And so we can think about things like a state instituting a policy requiring Black history as part of their state's curriculum, or changing local zoning ordinances so that a corner market may display produce outdoors. Another example could be park districts that adopt policies that really prioritize investment in areas where there's not that many great parks. So those are some examples of policy change. When we're talking about systems change, and systems change one more thing too. So, and one of the pieces for policy change really is seeing that the policy can be that big P policy that really sits with, policy work within municipalities and and at the state level, but we also look at small Ps that can happen as well within different types of organizations. And so systems change, going back to that, really creates change, fundamental shifts in how problems are solved and how resources and services get distributed. And so it involves changes made to policies, processes, power structures, and relationships that are within or across organizations. And so system change can be written or unwritten. There can be ongoing, and oftentimes they are qualitative organizational decision change. And they might proceed or follow written policies as well. And so some examples of system change include someone who redesigns power structures within institutions to center community voices and decision-making. So they say when we're doing work within this particular organization, we expect that our constituents' voices or the community's voice is going to be with us at the table doing this work and making decisions. Another example is folks can establish guidelines for low vision awareness in all age-friendly planning work. So those are some of the things that can happen within or across systems, so changes can be made. And now when we're looking at environmental change involves the economic, social, or physical surrounding or context that affect health outcome. And so environmental strategies create more lasting change when paired with systems and policy changes. So examples of environmental change include incorporating pedestrian-friendly intersections and recreation areas into community designs, or education and awareness campaign that really destigmatizes domestic violence, sexual violence, survivors seeking services. So these are some of the environmental change that can take place under that. And again, all three together strengthens one another. And again, these grants, we're anticipating that there's some threads along PSE throughout the work. And so here are more examples of thinking about, oftentimes we get asked, is what I'm doing considered PSE change, or is this what you all mean by PSE change? And so really what we're trying to do here is give some examples or demonstrating like what a programmatic approach more looks like and what we're looking at and what we're looking for within the this particular grant opportunity as PSE approach. The first one here is on the programmatic side, where provide fresh fruit, fresh local food to school students. That's considered more of a programmatic approach because, as you know, there are so many different things that could occur where it's like, is this a point in time situation? This is really individually based, at the school at the moment. And so, it can be a one-time thing, it could be a summer thing, but it's looking more short term, where what a PSE approach would look to do with this is work with other partners on a statewide fresh food to school grant bill to ensure that permanent funding is available to support healthy eating in school. And so it's not to say that, providing those local foods to students is not a worthwhile thing. However, when you're thinking about the PSE approach is really looking to make this part of a system that's going to remain there, that's going to be long lasting, and it doesn't stop happening because funds run out. It doesn't stop happening because people no longer have the connections. It's part of an overall system. And I'll just do one more here by way of example, is connecting people with case managers to help access housing. Again, certainly something that's needed in the immediate work of, finding housing. We all know the situations that we're dealing with. But when we're looking at the PSE approach, it's advocating for changes to local and other policies and municipal funding regulations to increase access to and availability of affordable housing. So again, they're looking at those different systems that they can stretch and dismantle some of the barriers that they face in order to make the work at the program level, connecting people to these case managers and helping those case managers actually find the housing stock available to help folks. And so those are some examples of a PSE approach versus some of the programmatic approach. And this slide here really just is demonstrating what characteristics of program versus PSE change. And again, we've talked about some of this where programmatic, it could be one time, more serving at an individual level, short-term and non-sustaining. But on the PSE characteristics, we're talking about some ongoing foundational pieces that go over in the long term in terms of long-term behavioral change, long-term supports, and sustainability. And in part two, again, this diagram is demonstrating kind of like what the first diagram that we saw before, and how important it is how we understand the importance of having these two together. But for the funds work, again, we're pushing folks with that PSE approach. All right. And, programs, they're going to address the immediate needs on the ground, and the PSE is going to be working to understand the long-term approaches to ensure that those challenges are addressed, and so that they don't continue to be a problem and even exacerbate further in the future. And so this is just an example of how PSE strategies work together. And so in this scenario here, you have a youth development organization wants to provide mental health support to their youth. And so a program approach would be they hire a mental health counselor at the organization. Again, this is looking at the immediate need to have more youth seen by a mental health professional. In the PSE approach, if we're looking at policy, for example, this organization created a policy to include mental health awareness to all staff training to increase their staff's knowledge and skills in youth mental health. Again, they're thinking about like the broad scope and how this is going to tie in and sustain longer term for this organization. A system change could be that this organization create a coalition with school teachers, youth with lived experience, mental health counselors, other stakeholders or partners, to find out what the youth really need and how to get help. And then they use the training curriculum that's developed for their staff to really equip teachers and other healthcare providers on how to look out for signs and provide help to those young people. And so they're looking at the entire system and bringing more people, more partnership, more community voice into the process to address this issue. And then in the environmental change approach, they create a permanent space for mental health counseling and make it welcome and comfortable. They also use what they've learned from the coalition to add to their program. So the environmental changes, like they found a permanent space, again, which is solving one piece, but they're also incorporating other systems and policy change to further enhance that work. And so now I am going to pass it to my colleague Chen Chen, who is going to share a little bit more.
Thank you, Albia. So after listening to what Albia shared about PSE change, you probably think, now I get it, but then what? We have the issue and we are serving the needs, but how can we transit from programmatic approach to PSE approach? So now we're introducing this tool called a root cause analysis. So root cause analysis is a technique that can help answer the question of why a problem is occurring. It works to identify the source of a problem so that we can identify the most appropriate solutions. So the simplest way to say that a root causes analysis is just keep asking why. So then we can work backwards from the problem until you identify the deeper cause. So policy system and environmental change are a valuable tool to address those deeper root causes and improve conditions that impact population health in the long term. So if you have joined other sessions before, you probably have seen this tree million times. And so this is a great way to demonstrate the root causes of health outcomes are buried underneath of the soil, and they're it's embedded in the policy system and environmental issues that are underneath, and that those are the things that we need to address. So now we want to transfer from what you learned from us and to a practice. Here's a case study. Please read this issue on the left side and then add your answers on the Padlet, and Albia will send the Padlet link to you in the chat. And then I will give you a few minutes, maybe 8 to 10 minutes to reflect and write down your answers on the Padlet. After that, then we can have a few volunteers to share. I'm gonna put it here. Albia, could you send the link to the chat?
Yes, I sent it in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll play some reflection music, and you can choose to turn off your camera and just read and write your reflections.